and welcome to the First San Francisco Partners ERP Transformation Fireside Chat. Today's ERP chat is going to be a condensed version of a longer chat we conducted, which included best practices, how to create success, specific client examples, and what to expect. Today, you'll get the high points, and we'll give you access to the longer version at the end. So relax and enjoy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Becky Lyons. I'm a principal consultant here at First San Francisco Partners, or FSFP, is a woman-founded and led enterprise data governance consulting firm with more than 16 years of experience working with some of the world's most notable organizations to transform data value into measurable business value.
ERP, enterprise resource planning tools, right? This is a technology that really can revolutionize how an organization's core business functions. It's really about centralizing processes, centralizing the data into one coordinated set, suite of software, maybe software as a service even, to really be able to have our processes flow from one to another much more seamlessly than they have in the past. So each component is designed to seamlessly integrate with the others and really be able to enable data sharing across the process flow as well.
Companies spend massive amounts of money on implementing an ERP to drive value, efficiency, and productivity for the business.
We've seen the challenges and sometimes the travesties that happen when the processes and the rules about how the data should flow are mismanaged. I just want you to take a moment and think about this data, all the critical data that operates every aspect of your business, the way really how you define your business, all of it goes into and out of this program. And often data is actually an overlooked and almost forgotten part of an ERP implementation. When you don't get the data right, what's the cost?
The cost really is in resources across the board, internal resources, external resources. There are downstream and connected costs. It can even affect your reputation if a launch goes poorly. So additional costs can relate from things like release delays, conversion issues, reporting challenges, other costly mistakes. And it doesn't have to be a nightmare. Tackling this with a mature, sustainable data capability is how you will be able to reach that digital transformation, realizing the value of your ERP investment. Data capability is how we refer to all the pieces of our modern data governance framework.
What's the top problem we see? Fundamentally, the thing that I see all the time is that data is considered too little, too late, and from a really limited perspective. And I think that that's really critical. It's an ERP implementation. Generally, you get your folks in there and you start to work on it, and there's a lot of focus on the process and the technology, getting the integrations up and running, a lot of process redesign for sure. And that's really important. But I think there's an assumption that the data is just going to magically fall into line. And it's not magic, and it won't. It might fall in line within the ERP, but that broader perspective of how that data is going to really land in your organization, that does not happen by accident. And as a matter of fact, if your current environment is fragmented, that's just proof that it doesn't happen by accident, because otherwise it would just have magically happened for you. So an ERP doesn't generally cover 100% of an organization's operations. And so even if the data is doing great within the ERP, really thinking about those ripple effects. What other systems need to be adjusted to accommodate the ERP data and changes to the data model? How does the day-to-day vocabulary of your organization change with the data coming out of the ERP? And vocabulary changes are part of culture change as well, and can be tremendously difficult to do successfully. And so I think it's really important that the big data picture for your organization is given equal priority with process redesign and technical integration. And that's really critical to make sure you can realize the value of your ERP investment.
Thank you, Gretchen. Yeah, we want to talk about the risks that you as an organization can try to avoid. And if you're encountering them, then course correct. So one really key issue that we see and risk that is brought forward with ERP transformations is they're too technical and process driven. And regardless of those the types of ERP implementations that you're seeing on the screen, many times they're driven and led by IT. And to take it one step further, a lot of times we are working with organizations that have outsourced their ERP transformations to large SIs or technology implementation partners. So thinking about the promise of an ERP in streamlining your organization, bringing in out-of-the-box functionality that's within the ERP solution, and doing things like standardizing your chart of accounts. These are all really big value adds that are supposed to help with the original intent of the work, but missing the people that know the data, not having business at the table to talk through what's the history of the prior ERP implementations, or what is the work that they do on the day-to-day basis, and what type of data do they use to meet their everyday needs. This is a huge miss. It introduces a lot of risk. And what this means is that the business-driven outcomes that is the promise of the ERP implementation are easily lost in translation, and it can put the whole program at risk. So now thinking, in preparing for this, we were talking about the impact of getting data governance involved on an ERP initiative and when that should be.
The technology that is built from an ERP perspective, it's built from a process and technology perspective, but not necessarily about the data. And that's why this is so important. You can't define the technology process, the technology requirements and the process requirements without thinking about the data. And it's really important to think about and ensure that the data is considered along with that technology solution from the very beginning through testing all the way to implementation. It's critical to have the business users from a stewardship as well as a governance and decision-making perspective involved throughout the entire process. An active data council throughout this process is really important. We've implemented and worked with clients before to bring that into the picture. And that's one of the most important pieces, as well as stewardship and making sure that the decisions around defining those master data elements and the domains and then how they're going to be managed throughout is really important.
First questions to consider: who gets to make data decisions within the ERP? And how do those decisions that you're making for data interact with the process and technology tracks within the ERP implementation, right? This kind of support, being able to make decisions that come up within the ERP implementation itself, that is something you will need throughout your program, right? Even up till after you go live, you still need to be able to make data decisions within that thing. Do we need to add a reference value? What's working, what's not working? So that's a really important part. How are you going to serve the ERP implementation with decision-making? And then along with that, who gets to make data decisions for the larger enterprise context, right? And that can include things like, what is your organization's overall master data architecture and design? What master data needs exist outside of the ERP, and how will those be served? I think, by the way, a lot of times people assume that the ERP will be the master data repository. That's not actually generally the primary function of the ERP itself, although many of them have master data management tools, but thinking about the big picture of the data. If you're going to be doing something with processing customer orders in your ERP, what needs to happen in your customer relationship management tool in order to make those two play together nicely in the future, right? For instance. And then how are you going to keep track of all of these data decisions and discussions that happen within the program and outside of the program, and share those with the organization? And those can be really important high-level strategic decisions that are being made about what information is going to happen where, or what processes will happen where. So big decisions, and they can be very, very tactical, right? What is the order of dimensions on your product? That is a very tactical in the overall realm of things, but if you don't get it right, it will have impacts later. You need to be able to document that and share that knowledge out with your organization over time. How are you going to support data migration and data testing? Because if it's only within the ERP program, you don't quite have all the perspectives you need. You need to be able to bring in additional perspectives from beyond that and test the data, not just within the ERP, but in your larger enterprise context as well. So, I mean, these are all some kind of key considerations to be thinking about whenever you get to start your data track, hopefully right at the beginning, but giving data an equal voice right from the get-go and just reduce churn for your whole implementation.
Data needs to have an equal voice, and that's my best practice. That is it. But I also want to kind of clarify when we're saying the data, what does that mean? Because I think sometimes people just think it's data governance. I talked about data migration. To me, there's 5 different things that are kind of all need to be considered with the equal amount of weight. It's the requirements, the data modeling, the data governance definitely is there. Operational models, stewardship, those types of things, and then also that data cleansing and migration piece of the puzzle.
My kind of best practice in this is really to focus on the incremental build of stewardship, as well as data literacy and data governance. In those cases where people might not have as much time to make this their priority, that's where I actually have a lot of fun introducing these, concepts into these teams and really find a lot of ways to provide value to these teams, but you don't want to bring it on all at one time. You don't want to overwhelm anyone. And so that's where you really have to meet everybody where they're at.
Thank you again so much for joining us and watching our ERP transformation fireside chat today. We hope it was beneficial and provided you a lot of information to support you through an existing ERP transformation, one that might be up and coming, or maybe you've already experienced one and you're having some challenges you're running up against and trying to deal with how that process has gone, maybe not gone so well for you. So we would love to hear from you. Please feel free to contact us and we will have a consultant reach out to you to set up some time to discuss. On behalf of First San Francisco Partners, thank you again.